Merry Christmas, everyone. It's Teresa from Heroes Gate. And kids, I believe you just picked up your Christmas Eve packets. Inside, you'll find something very special. It's a book. It's actually a book we made just for you guys, and it's actually a coloring book. So when I'm done reading it, you guys can take out the crayons in your packet and actually color it. And there's even stickers in there that you can put all over it. It's gonna be great fun. So first, though, we're gonna read. So if mom or dad, grandma or grandpa, whoever brought you to church is nearby, why don't you kind of snuggle up next to them, because we're gonna read this together. Oh, and I should let you know, every time it's time to turn the page, you'll hear this sound. All right? Well, let's get started. It's called The Invitation Proclamation. Beyond the choppy Tarkanian Sea, past the endless forest of Garumbo trees, on the other side of the mountains of Wayne is the rolling green land of Toro Tomain. Its people are in general quite happy and content as they plant crops, sew suits, and helpful machines invent. And high on a hill above its largest city sits a gleaming castle with banners waving pretty. This castle is home to the king of the land, whose people all benefit from his just ruling hand. One of the servants of this king most kind was a young Toro Tomanian named Bertram Surwind. He worked as assistant to the king's chief writer and mostly kept clean his boss's gold typewriter. But young Bertram did so long for the day when he would be a true writer and create his own essay. For the king to read and proclaim most good, as Bertram was confident he certainly would. If he were only able to prove his skill, his brilliant destiny he would surely fulfill. Then one day, rather out of the blue, Bertram received his writing breakthrough, for the king with an idea was very much smitten and needed an urgent proclamation to be written. For the chief writer had come down with sniddlegree flu, and Bertram was the only writer who would do. So to the throne room his notepad and quill he did bring, to discover what was to be said to the people from their king. He bowed low before the throne, all a-tremble and nervous, as he said, "My king, I am humbly here at your royal service." "Bertram Surwind," the king did proclaim, "I've given next Tuesday a brand new name. It shall be known henceforth and forever as the best, most splendid great feast day ever. And on that day at the stroke of noon, all people in my kingdom should grab their best spoon and hurry here quick for a feast most grand, and dancing to music played by the royal band. Now be sure to send this joyous invitation to everyone in my kingdom, no matter their station." "It shall be done immediately," Bertram answered his royal majesty. Then upstairs to his room Bertram did hurry and began writing the proclamation in a flurry. He wrote up the part telling all the date and reminded them to take care not to be late. He wrote the king's words tried and true, and his own excitement for the feast day grew. But as Bertram neared the letter's end, he felt the king's words he certainly must amend. The king had said all should receive the invitation, no matter their status or social station. But Bertram knew this could not be true. If the lowest of the low came, what would they do? Certainly the king had meant to only invite those who had been good citizens and lived most right. He would never invite, Bertram was quite sure, those who at parties were a solid bore. And of course, Bertram decided without delay he hadn't meant to include those who'd lost their way and chosen not to live by the king's rules and laws and lived as they wished, full of evil and flaw. And so Bertram changed the words of the decree to what he believed was meant by his majesty. Then he made many copies and sent them away with the royal messengers in their quick relay. To every house and village and town went the royal proclamation of the crown. Some, upon reading the invite's contents, with glee began to prepare for the upcoming events, but others, reading the very last part, went away sad deep down in their hearts. As the castle was decorated for the feast, Bertram's own excitement increased. And when the next day to the throne he was called, Bertram was joyous and most enthralled. He thought he'd receive praise and the king's thanks, and perhaps among the servants rise up in the ranks. But the king did not smile. He wore a frown that immediately brought Bertram's spirits down. "You called for me?" Bertram said with a bow, noting the furrow in the king's brow. "Bertram Surwind," the king began, "you changed my words, my bold young man. I said without doubt, or lie, or shame, to all my people the message be proclaimed. Yet you saw fit to change what I said with what came into your own young head. Now there are people throughout the land who believe from my feast day they are banned. But that is not true, and I do not want it so. I want everyone in my kingdom to know." But your majesty, Bertram sputtered, I did not mean to change what you had uttered. I simply assumed you wouldn't want people of that kind to with the good people of the land be combined. The king took a deep breath, his eyes sad, as he gazed at Bertram, no longer mad. My dear son, the king said gently, as he looked on the young writer intently, I love all my people, no matter their choice, and I want each to hear my voice. Calling their name to my feast most grand, a feast for each of them I have planned. Bertram stood quiet, feeling ashamed, and knowing it was wrong what he had proclaimed. Then, to his surprise, the king rose from his throne and crossed the floor of hard gray stone. The king knelt before the young writer, and the darkness in Bertram's heart became lighter. I forgive you, my son, the king said with a smile. Now let's go and do something most worthwhile. Let's go send out a new proclamation, with a message to all, a new invitation. And so if you ever go beyond the Tarkanian Sea, past the endless forest of Garumbo trees, on the other side of the mountains of Wayne, and come to the rolling green land of Torotomain, you're likely to find its people smiling, for they've had a grand peace and reconciling. Thanks to the king, most wise and kind, who for a yearly grand feast was most inclined. And whenever the people gather for this great feast, all are included, from greatest to least.